Ago! 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 I appreciate your leadership, fam. As you know, I'm a husband, father, and an author, and your brother. I've written 14 books, published 10, and I'm really honored to be able to share my latest work, Southern Hospitality, Attrition in Toronto Self-Detention Center. The work is predicated on one of my friends. He was incarcerated in the facility. When he was released, I was supporting him with some resources because he knew of the work I'd done and knew justice for many years. He gave me a narrative of some of the injustices happening inside that facility. So what I ended up doing was writing an article in the Caribbean Camera. The article was written 2 years ago, and it was right in the week of Prisoners Justice Week. And when I wrote it, I attempted to edify readers on some of the attrition. For instance, it cost $1.3 billion to create the facility. An architectural firm named Ziegler got the bulk of the contract, and if you look outside that window right there, Ellis Don got about $385 million to build the facility. If we look at community benefits agreements and social procurements in the province of Ontario, you'll recognize the fact that it's very easy for myself as an African-Canadian male or a black man or a man with a high concentration of melanin to be incarcerated in one of these facilities. But if I wanted to engage in a social procurement contract to generate revenue for my family or my business, it would be very challenging. So when we think of a prison industrial complex in the States, understand this, we have a live prison industrial complex right here in Toronto, Ontario, and subsequently Canada.
Maybe the next move, or how can we deal with the violence that's going on in our communities in the city of Toronto?
I think a lot of people are trying to engage politicians, various decision makers. I always say engage with parents, mothers, musicians, and media. When I say mothers, I mean there's a lot of black women in communities, underserved, marginalized communities, that don't know that there's black men like Elliot Louis March and Castelli, so many that care about them. And we want to be able to engage them and edify them in a way that they can know that their sons can be supported. We know the violence is happening in our city right now, and I always go back to the 4 Ds. And I'm going to say it again. Daddy, diet, drugs, and debts. We're dealing with toxic forms of masculinity on these streets and underserved communities. Unless we find ways and means to provide or edify young people with positive role models and masculine, true alpha leadership, they're at loss. Diets. A lot of our young men are eating atrocious foods, and we know the link between diet and behavior. Drugs. A lot of our young men are dealing with frustration, anxiety, depression, and they're using drugs as a coping mechanism. We're talking about Xanax, Percocet, Molly, codeine. These are forms of cocaine and crack. And we move from hip-hop culture being a culture of folks glorifying the drug dealer to now these young people actually glorifying the drug users. And we really need to find ways to support these young people around the diet and the drugs piece. But last but not least, debts. A lot of our young people are consistently being engaged by nefarious characters in their communities and consigning work. And a lot of times they don't have the resources to either pay off the debt, so it leads to either sophisticated levels of models of interest that leads to death, or in some instances jail. I really appreciate you, family. Thank you for coming out, and continue to build, and make sure you buy a book.